New health guidelines submitted by a panel of experts suggesting Americans should cut back on red meat and processed foods, and in its place, eat more beans, peas, and lentils. Now, it's also suggested you limit your intake of sugar, sodium, and saturated fats. I know, all the good stuff. These suggestions will help the U.S. government put together next year's dietary guidelines for all Americans. Now, joining me now is one of the experts who helped put this report together, Dr. Fatima Cody, Stanford, an obesity medicine physician at MGH and an associate professor at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Stanford, thank you so much for joining us. Now,
thanks so much for having me. It's a delight to be here.
Yes, thank you. So why do these guidelines change every couple of years, and what do you take into consideration when putting them together?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for asking us about our systematic reviews. What we do is actually look at a systematic review. And what we do is we really survey all of the literature, both here in the United States and around the world. We do a deep dive in the literature, and we actually spend 2 years, 2 full years, putting together these guidelines. Every 5 years, these guidelines are released. And so this represents what will come out, obviously, in 2025. We actually just released these on Tuesday. And this will represent a body of literature surveying all of what comes out in every country, looking at what are best for the health of the nation.
And much of the pushback to these new guidelines are from people who love their steak and red meat. And a lot of information out there suggests that red meat and animal protein is good for you. What place should those things have in someone's diet?
I think that we have to take a place of moderation. It's not saying that, we could just have to eliminate these things for our diet, but really need to think about the health of people. And as a physician, I really do think about this. And for my patients that might be watching, they know that I really think about things in moderation. We know that iron, zinc, and B12 do come from red meats. But when we look at what these guidelines do show us, we can get a lot of these things from plant-based sources, peas, beans, and lentils, you stated at the outset of this report. And this is really what we have shown. It really gives us the best health. How do we really protect those arteries? How do we prevent things like strokes and heart attacks? And when we look at consumption of those types of things, these are the things that reduce those things that really lead to the best, to things that can be really deleterious to our health and lead overall to best overall quality of health and reduce chronic disease.
And as you said, everything in moderation, a good thing to keep in mind. Your panel is said to have steered away from making any recommendations about alcohol. Why is that? And what should we know about its effects to our health, especially going into the holidays?
Yeah, when we look at, the nutrition experts that were on this panel, there were 20 of us, we really wanted to make sure that we had the best expertise. And when you look at us, we aren't necessarily always the best people to inform about alcohol intake. There will be some recommendations coming out from Health and Human Services and the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine that will look at findings that will inform that particular guidelines with regards to health. Here again, when we're looking at alcohol intake, we know that alcohol intake can potentially have some deleterious effects on health. And so we wanted to make sure that the people that are best informed, the key experts in that area, are able to make sure those recommendations come forward and not necessarily those of us that mostly study the nutrition side of the puzzle. So I would say take these things in moderation and be very careful, particularly during the holidays, as these things can go awry.
Great tips to keep in mind, as you said, especially as people are preparing to gather. Dr. Fatima Cody, Stanford of MGH and Harvard Medical School, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me.